Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head down to Australia once again, and we're going to return to a brewery that has now featured on the channel a good few times before. Now, I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the last couple of years, a few different styles, and if people were to ask me about this brewery, I would say that they probably are very solid all round. We've had some really nice IPAs and things like that from them, but we've also had some big beers at the darker end of the spectrum, which have been particularly good. So yeah, probably is fair to describe this brewery as being very solid all round. But the beer that we're going to have a look at from them today is something a little bit special. It's one of their kind of more unusual releases from what I gather, and yeah, it is supposed to be a very, very nice beer. So needless to say, I'm very, very curious to see what this one's going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, like I said, we are going to head down to Australia. We're going to go to the state of Victoria, the city of Melbourne, and the district of Braeside in the southeast of the city to be specific. So that means that we're going to have a look at another beer from Boatrocker Brewery, or Boatrocker Brewers and Distillers, to give them their kind of official name if you like. I'll need to check what we actually put for the last videos from these guys, but this particular beer is called The Devil Is in the Detail. It comes in at 11.1% ABV, and this one I think we technically have to call a cuvee because it's a blend of an Imperial Stout and a Barleywine. So yeah, this one is a 25% blend of Boatrocker's Ramjet Imperial Stout and a 75% blend of their Banshee barley wine. So yeah, we've reviewed both of those beers on the channel previously, and they were both really pretty damn good. So I'm quite curious to see what this blend is going to have in store for us. And obviously, both of those beers that are in this blend were aged in Starward whiskey barrels. So yeah, this is yet another beer that I picked up at the wonderful Out of the Brew in Sheung Wan over on Hong Kong Island. It's Australian owned, so you can find some really random Australian beers in there, and that is pretty much the reason that I was able to get a hold of one of these, because I'm guessing these can be a little bit difficult to come by. But yeah, this should be really interesting. The Devil's in the Detail, 11.1% ABV, a barley wine Imperial Stout blend from Boatrocker Brewery in Braeside in Melbourne in Victoria, Australia. Let's crack on with this one then and see how we go. So first off, a massive shout out to my good friend Sam Smalley over at Short and Stout Beer Reviews. If you're particularly interested in Australian craft beer, he's the man you want to hit up. I'll put the link to his channel in the video description for you below. I know he enjoys my Australian reviews as well, so a big shout out to him in this one. Go and show him some love. But yeah, as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Boatrocker Brewery before, and we will no doubt add more to that list at some point in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Australian playlist along with a number of other things. That's being added to quite regularly, of course, because we do get a good regular supply Aussie beers here in Hong Kong, and long may that continue. But do make sure you check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well, because there are some pretty interesting things on the channel these days, even if I do say so myself. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit about Boatrocker Brewers and Distillers once again then, or Boatrocker Brewery. And as I say, I need to check what we actually call this brewery in the previous videos. But yeah, Boatrocker are based in Braeside in southeastern Melbourne and Victoria down in Australia, and the company was founded back in 2009 by Andrea and Matt Houghton. So Matt was inspired to homebrew at a young age because he watched the Beer Hunter TV program with Michael Jackson, and as a result of watching this program, he travelled to many famous beer locations such as those in Belgium, Germany, England and Colorado over in the US. But upon his return to Australia, he felt that he lacked a choice of good beer, and so it was this that pushed him on to look at brewing his own stuff. So he went to study brewing at Ballarat University, and it was there that he met his now wife Andrea. So the pair then decided after university to contract brew a recipe that they had perfected for their friends, and this later became the Alpha Queen beer, and it was followed soon after by the Hop beer and then the Aotearoa Sma, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I hope I am. But these beers went on to win awards at the international beer festivals, and this was the kind of foundation, if you like, of Boatrocker Brewery. So the success of these beers prompted them to look at getting their own facility, and so in late 2012 they built their own brewery in Braeside, and when they moved into this brewery they bought a bunch of barrels and started their barrel program, which was one of the first in Australia. In 2016 they received investment from the Hand Group, which took a 33% share in the company, and this helped them open their barrel room across the road from the original brewery, which has 15 taps and seats 100 people at a time. But they apparently started with about 100,000 litres worth of different wine, whiskey and bourbon barrels when they got this facility, and the following year after this in 2017 they partnered up with Hippocampus Distillery to open their own distillery which produces whiskey, gin, rum and vodka, and they also produce their own cocktails these days as well from what I've seen. But over the last few years they've continued to develop new recipes in terms of both beers and spirits and cocktails and things as well, and as of September 2025 when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 305 different kinds of beer according to Untappd. But yeah, that is everything I can really tell you about Boatrocker Brewers and Distillers, to give them their full name for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Untappd page as well to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. But yeah, let's go on then and have a little look at this beer itself. So yeah, as I said earlier, this one comes in at 11.1% ABV. On Untappd, they've listed this one as a barley wine, which kind of makes sense because, as we said, it's a 25% Imperial Stout, 75% barley wine blend. So, you know, technically, I think we have to call this a cuvee. But yeah, 25% Ramjet, 75% Banshee, so it should be pretty good. Both of those beers individually were pretty awesome. I mean, I remember Ramjet being a really roasty, toasty, old school RIS, and the Banshee was kind of an interesting mix of English and American barley wine, but the Starward whiskey barrels that those things were in gave them a really interesting and quite sweet and slightly toasty, caramelly sort of whiskey character as well. So I should point out that the blend, from what I understand, isn't the thing that's been barrel aged, it's the two beers making up the blend that has been barrel aged as well. And Starward Distillery, incidentally, are from Port Melbourne in Victoria too, so that's kind of their local distillery, and I guess that's why they like their barrels. So yeah, I don't think there's anything else we really need to say about the beer from a technical perspective. I think we've covered that quite well, but I'll just let you have a little look at the artwork on this one before we open up. So there you can see the Boatrocker symbol at the top of the bottle there. You can see the artwork in there, the devil reading over the details of a contract or his book or whatever, and there you can see the Starward Distillery symbol there as well. And we've got a nice kind of red wax top on this watch. I've just cut a line in before filming the video just to get it ready to open up. But it says on the back here, Ramjet 2024, Banshee 2024, a match made in heaven. The blend allows each beer to shine without either dominating. Some roast and dark malt character comes through from Ramjet, as do the exquisite sweet sherry notes from the Banshee. Together they create something unique. So yeah, this should be quite nice. I saw that a bottle of this on the Boatrockers website will set you back 25 Aussie dollars. I think I paid maybe about 130 Hong Kong dollars or something like that for this one. I honestly can't remember, but this beer was one of my fuck it why not moments because it seemed pretty rare. So yeah, and it was basically because I enjoyed the other two that made up this one. So yeah, let's get this guy out into the glass then and just see what it's all about. So there we go. Nice kind of clean opening on this one. A little bit of smoke as we open up the bottle there, but yeah, we'll get it out into the glass and see what we have from this one. So we don't want to waste this, of course, so we'll use our old chemistry technique and just balance it on the edge and let it all kind of decant down. So there we go. We'll check it later in case there is any that has escaped us, because we don't want to waste good beer. But yeah, there we go. Anyway, so as you can see, when we've poured this beer, we'll take a look at the head before it disappears. We can see that it's poured with about a quarter finger of a frothy, I would say kind of fawn coloured head there. Some medium-sized bubbles on the surface of the liquid, but yeah, it gets a lot more foamy the further up that you go, and you can see there's a nice wispy layer just on the top of the beer there. It's kind of spinning around, if you like, looks like nebula clouds almost, but yeah, you've got a thicker ring just around the edge of the glass there. If we shine the light through this beer, it's got a lovely sort of dark Pepsi Max Coke Zero sort of colour to it there. So yeah, colour wise, I think to you guys on the camera this one's appearing like pretty sort of dark ebony rosewood, but to the naked eye it is actually like a very, very dark kind of rosewoody type colour. Yeah, it's definitely more of a kind of brown beer than a black beer, if that makes sense. It's like a very, very dark chestnut or rosewoody type colour for sure. It's not absolutely ebony, if that makes sense. I always like comparing the dark beers to different guitar woods because that's just something that I personally am quite familiar with. But yeah, there's not much in the way of visible carbonation with this one. You can see a few little bubbles just coming up toward the surface there and breaking the surface. There's one or two sticking to the side of the glass too, and it looks really quite nice. But yeah, in terms of what you'd expect appearance wise from a blend of an Imperial Stout and a Barleywine, I guess this makes sense, but obviously with it being 75% Barleywine, it's leaning more toward that kind of brown beery side of things rather than a black beer. But remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few things. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker coloured beer. But any barrel aging that you do or any adjuncts you put into the beer will affect its colour as well. When it comes to brown beers, it's a little bit easier to affect those with the addition of adjuncts and barrel aging and stuff, but when it comes to black beers, it's pretty damn difficult. But yeah, in terms of the two styles in this one, the Imperial Stout, like I say, the Ramjet from memory was a more kind of old school RIS Imperial Stout, which I really do quite enjoy. I'm not the biggest fan of the more pastry type stouts that we're getting a lot of these days. It's quite a big roasty toasty sort of thing. When it comes to the Imperial Stouts, there's a few ways you can play with these style. So you can do, for example, barrel aging, where you're going to sacrifice some of the mouthfeel to get these big woody infused flavours. You can do a longer wort boil, where you're going to get a little bit more focus on the complexity of the brown sugars. You can do a little bit of adjunct addition, where you're going to get you're going to get a little bit more of like flavour essence and stuff, and it'll concentrate on one particular flavour. Or you can do a double mash, which is going to give you a very big, thick, sticky mouthfeel. And I don't think they really did any of they did a bit of barrel aging with the Ramjet, of course, but yeah, they didn't do any of the other three, I don't think, with that one. It was a very roasty, toasty RIS. When it comes to the Banshee, I remember the Banshee being a slightly more toasty brown sugary, but more kind of somewhere between an American and an English barley wine, if you like. So yeah, with the barley wines, the American ones tend to be a little bit more rounded in their brown sugar, a little bit more oily, and the fruits are a little bit kind of sweeter almost, whereas the English barley wines are a little bit more dry and leathery in terms of their brown sugars, and it's instead of like raisins and plums, it's more like prunes and dates and stuff like that you're getting from them, the more kind of dried fruit. And with a barley wine, yeah, you can give them a longer wort boil as well, which gives you that big chewy sort of character to them. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see the brew sheets for both of these beers, but those are the technical ways to play with both of these. But I think we've covered the technical aspects and the appearance of this one. Let's go on and have a wee look at the aroma of it then and just see what we get here. Oh yeah, I'm going to say straight away, this is absolutely beautiful. I could sit and smell this all day, but we'll try not to, because got to give you guys a good review of this. But I'm going to say straight away, this is going to be something pretty damn special actually. I've been looking forward to this one since I bought it, but I didn't want to review it until I was properly awake, if you like. I've been quite tired the last couple of weeks, and also I wanted to make sure I had the Banshee and the Ramjet both done, if you like. But I'll say it definitely leans more toward the barley wine side of things, but you can get that little bit of roasty toasty side from the Imperial Stout too. So yeah, this is great. Let's just break it down then and describe it for you more in depth. First off, you can absolutely smell the whiskey barrel in this one. So you can smell that nice smooth oaky character in there. It's got a little bit of dryness to it, right enough. Remember, there's a difference between American oak and European oak. It's a different species of tree. So the European oak for me, I think, is a little bit drier almost, whereas the American one's a bit kind of smoother and more vanilla-y. And I'm not sure which species of oak it will be down in Australia, but yeah, they do have their own as well. So probably be a little bit different. So you can smell a little bit of that oaky character in there. You can smell the whiskey as well. There's a wee bit of vanilla to the wood. The whiskey for me, as I say, is quite a brown sugar leaning one. It's kind of more akin to like a Speyside whiskey, but it's a little bit more kind of citrusy and floral as well, such as Glengoyne, which is one of my local distilleries. So it's got a bit of that going on as well. But yeah, you can certainly smell the whiskey character coming out of the base of the beer too. But it doesn't overpower it, in all honesty, but it does play a big role. I think they've got this quite well balanced. I think it's maybe about like, what, 40% barrel, 40% barley wine, and about 20% Imperial Stout. I think that's the kind of makeup that's coming out of the aroma here. So you can definitely get a little bit of a roasty, toasty, well-fired bread crust out of this one. There's absolutely like a big, oily, kind of rye bready character to this beer as well. There's some wholemeal brown bread in there, like a sort of brandy soaked raisin loaf or something like that. There's a kind of bready character that's very, very much like that, or a caramel sponge, I think, is another way you could describe that. They say sherry, and you know, those kind of aromas for me make sense, but it feels a little bit more kind of sponge cakey or bready and things, I would say. But yeah, there's a little touch of a chocolatey note in there, but not too much. It's more like a kind of, 60% cocoa chocolate, so I can get a little bit of that in there. But that is very minimal, I would add. It's kind of drowned out a wee bit by the brown sugars in this one. There's little elements of nuttiness in there as well. You've got toasty brown sugar, a more leathery brown sugar as well. But I don't think there's been too long a wort boil with this. I think a lot of the smoothing in this one will have come from the kind of barrel aging, if you like. There's treacle, molasses in there, sweet caramel, to say some toasty brown sugars as well. The malty side of this beer is absolutely lovely, but nothing unexpected. We can say that it's just absolutely lovely. But we're very familiar with these styles on the channel these days, so it's quite rare to find something that does surprise you, in honesty. So yeah, interesting stuff. So let's look at the yeasty side of the beer then. At the back of the nose, you can get the yeasty character out of this one, and for me, it's kind of like an English or Scottish, whatever. It's kind of like one of these Christmas puddings, those very phenolic things, those raisin cakes that have been highly caramelized and sort of burned with the alcohol and stuff like that. It's very much like that. So yeah, there's a wee bit of a more rye bready character to it as well, some toasty bread crust and toasty brown sugar, like I said. So yeah, the way that goes together in this one, I think, is really nice. The yeasty and malty side of this beer go together very well, but it becomes very woody, very spirity, and very sort of nutty into the aftertaste, along with those Christmas puddingy type notes. Yeah, I like that in this one. The malty yeasty side of things, where the focus is of course going to be, is absolutely lovely. So let's look at the hoppy side of things then. Now, remember that these beers that are both in this blend have both been barrel aged, so the hoppy character will have dropped out of the beer quite considerably. It's the 2024 editions, and I think, I'm trying to think when I bought this beer. I think I bought it back in February or March or something like that, earlier on this year anyway. So it's been in the bottle for about 6 months as of the time of filming, and then it's obviously come up from Australia too, and then it is the 2024 edition. So I don't know, maybe this has been a slightly older bottle that's been bought from the tap room. I really couldn't tell you exactly how long this has been in here, but yeah, both beers are barrel aged. Anyway, that means the hoppy character will have dropped out of them to an extent. The Imperial Stout in the first instance is not the most hop forward style of beer, and as you let those age a little bit, you're going to get a more kind of silky sort of mouthfeel out of them, whereas with the barley wines, they are quite hoppy, and of course the hoppy character will kind of drop back and be a little bit more kind of spicy and piney and stuff like that. So you've got an interesting blend with this, but you do certainly get a little bit of hoppy character out of it, but it's obviously not as pungent as it would have been otherwise. But again, it leans more toward the barley wine side of things, because one, that's the more hoppy beer, and two, it's the kind of dominant component of the blend, I would say. So yeah, there's a wee bit of earthiness to this one. There's a little bit of like woody, herbally character, but I I get quite a lot of floral aromaticity out of it and a nice kind of zesty grassiness. So I like the way that the hoppy character is kind of pushing its way out of this one. I don't think there's too much else to say on that, but yeah, you can tell the hops have kind of dropped back a little bit. So yeah, on the fruity side of things, for me, it's interesting because you do have a little bit of that sharper raisiny kind of note out of it. So there's that, yeah, there's that sharper raisiny kind of character out of it. There's a big juicy plummy note there, but underneath that you do have like drier prunes and dates and a little bit of sultana and things, some figgy notes. I don't know if I can really say blackcurrants in this one, but there's definitely that sharper blackberry kind of character as well. So when you sugar it up, in fairness, you do get a little bit more blackcurrant, and the figgy and datey, pruny notes come out a little bit more. So yeah, just be aware of that. The way that goes together in this one I think is really nice, and yeah, when you sugar it up, it does feel that little bit more kind of juicy and American barley wine. Like when you let it settle, it has the more English sort of fruity character to it. But yeah, aroma wise, there's a lot going on in this one, so take a wee bit of time to just enjoy that side of the beer before you get stuck into it. That's always half the experience when it comes to craft beers and whiskies and sakes and things like that, in my opinion at least. So yeah, I can get my breath back. Let's go on and actually have a taste of this beer then. So yeah, this one is The Devil Is in the Detail, an 11.1% cuvee technically, 25% Ramjet Russian Imperial Stout, and 75% Banshee, I think American style barley wine from the wonderful Boatrocker Brewers in Braeside, Melbourne, Victoria, Australia. Let's have a taste of this one. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Ooh. Yeah, that is really nice. I was going to say straight away, if you actually go on the website for Boatrocker, there's a little video where Matt talks about how they made this beer and some of the technicalities and things behind it, and yeah, they've done a really nice job with it, that's for sure. I think they've got the perfect blend here. It's absolutely mostly barley wine in the beginning, and the Imperial Stout is kind of showing its head a little bit, or rearing its head, whatever the right word is, into the aftertaste. But yeah, the way it goes together I think is really nice. So it gets a big thumbs up from me. So yeah, it's a really nicely done beer. Very smooth actually, in a sense as well, but it gives you all the flavours that you'd expect from the aroma. But this is a beer that's very much about the aftertaste and how things develop in a sense. But yeah, very brown sugar in the beginning, then it shows you a bit more of the barrel and the Imperial Stout in the end. But yeah, let's go to that middle third of your palate then and break the beer down as we always do. So yeah, so for me, the backbone of this beer, you've got that lovely smooth smooth woody character that's coming out of this one. You can feel that there. It's a lovely just oaky note, and as you move further forward, as I say, you get a little touch of vanilla character coming out of it. And generally speaking, remember that sweeter flavours come out further forward on the palate, more dry and bitter flavours come out further back. So you can absolutely say that the spirit in this one, you can feel the spirit as well. It's quite a bright brown sugary kind of character. It's got a little bit of toastiness to it, wee bits of almonds and things, and I think there's a little touch of floral note to it as well. But the spirit is definitely a little bit toastier further back, and it brightens up and shows you its sweeter side further forward. But yeah, for me, quite a brown, I'm guessing that Starward is quite a brown sugary whiskey, a lot more remnant of the Speyside type things. I get a wee bit of that butter candy, butterscotch, Werther's Original type flavours out of the beer into the aftertaste. But yeah, on top of the spirit layer then, there's a slight smattering of a kind of toasty, well-fired bread crust in there, but it's actually pretty smooth. It's not like too aggressive or anything like that, but again, that's an aspect of the beer that comes out into the aftertaste. So yeah, on top of that toasty bread crusty character, you start to get, there's like a sort of rye bready note out of this one, and it's quite an oily rye bread. But yeah, the next layer, so oily rye bread in there. There's a bit of a more wholemeal brown bready character above that. Then there's a little bit of a more kind of almost caramel spongy type layer there. So it's got a very kind of bready backbone, this beer, in a way. And within those bready layers, there's definitely a little bit of a sort of almond, pecan, nutty type character coming out of it, and that's really quite nice. Above the sort of caramel spongy cake layer, I'd say there's a bit of a kind of powdered chocolate almost, so it's got a wee bit more of a, yeah, it's got a wee bit more of a, it's like maybe about 40-ish% cocoa chocolate further forward on the palate, but then as you go further back it's maybe about 50-60% cocoa chocolate. It's got a wee bit of dryness to it, almost kind of cocoa nibby, so you can feel that layer just, you can feel that layer sort of sitting on top of the kind of caramel sponge further back. So yeah, I really do like how that kind of pieces together in this one. But then above everything else, you start to get the brown sugary side of the beer. So yeah, the brown sugary notes in this one, they're quite oily in the beginning, but they do get a little bit drier into the aftertaste. And yeah, I think in this beer at least, I think it's showing you a little bit more of an Englishy sort of barley wine character. So yeah, first layer of your brown sugar is a little bit toasty, then it's got a layer of a slightly more almost leathery brown sugar, then in the dead centre of your palate you can feel there's a sort of circle there, and it's a lot of like Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy sort of flavours, but in the dead centre of your palate there's just a little bit of a straight up sweet caramel, and that is of course the boozy side of the beer. So this one isn't showing as much kind of treacle molasses in the flavour as the Banshee was, from what I remember. So I think the Ramjet is sort of smoothing out the beer a little bit, which is quite interesting. But like I say, into the aftertaste you get more of the spirit, more of the wood, a little bit of the vanilla, and some of the kind of smoother sides of the brown sugar, and a wee bit of the chocolate as well. So it's quite interesting just to see how the beer's kind of developed in that particular regard. But I think with that, some of the nuttiness is coming out too, but I think with that we've covered the middle third of your palate, and that's absolutely where a lot of the complexity in this beer is. So let's go to the back third of your palate then. So the border region between middle and back third of your palate, again you get that little bit of sort of bready build up in there. You've got the oily rye bread in the base, the more wholemeal brown bread in the middle, then that kind of caramelly spongy character and the wee bit of cocoa nibby note sitting above it. But yeah, the way that goes together I think is really nice in this one. So yeah, I like that. But on the back third of your palate you've got similar layers there, they just come out at different intensities. So yeah, you've got the drier side of the wood, the more kind of crispy side of the spirit as well. The roasty toasty well-fired bread crust is absolutely more noticeable on that back third of your palate. You've got the rye bready layer coming out this one, which feels a little bit lighter, taller, more airy and dry as well. You can say the same about the wholemeal brown bready layer, which sits above that. And then yeah, above that you also have the kind of more caramel spongy sort of layer, and again the sort of cocoa nibby chocolatey characters just creep over the top of that, and some of the toastier and slightly leathery aspects of the brown sugar kind of creep in there as well. But above everything else on that back third of your palate you've got the yeasty side of the beer. So let's have a wee look at that yeasty side of things. So yeah, yeasty side of this beer, for me, it's a little bit more, how would you say, at its core, it has got a little bit of that like really dense, gooey sort of Scottish, English Christmas pudding sort of thing. As I've mentioned in many of my reviews before, my dad had his birthday in early February, and he used to love Christmas pudding for that. So my mum always used to make him extra in February. So my dad's birthday cake was Christmas pudding. So yeah, it's got that big phenolic-y, you know, charged, sherry-soaked Christmas puddingy sort of character to it in the middle of the yeasty character. Surrounding that, you've got a bit more of the oily rye bread, the kind of wholemeal brown breads around the very edge there, and there's a wee bit of toasty character too. So the yeasty side of this beer does give the beer a little bit of charriness and a little bit of phenolic-y character into the aftertaste. You can absolutely say that. So yeah, English Scottish Christmas pudding, but with a bit more sherry and toastiness to it, and that's what lingers into the aftertaste with this one, along with the spirit and the wood and the nuts that I mentioned earlier. So yeah, definitely back third of your palate you can feel the flavour is taller, then as you move further forward into the middle third of your tongue it just kind of compresses down and squashes together that little bit more. So yeah, I like how all of that pieces together in this beer. Let's go on to the hoppy side of things then. As I mentioned earlier, a lot of the hoppy character will have kind of dropped out of this beer, but there's still some remnants of flavour in there. There's a little bit of kind of earthiness for sure. As you move further forward, it's got a wee bit of a kind of almost smooth woody character to it and some herbal notes, and then yeah, as you press further forward from that, you've got some nice floral aromaticity, and also around the front curve of your tongue it's just that little bit lighter and more grassy, if you like. So yeah, the way that all of that pieces together I think is really, really nice in this one. So yeah, I think we said everything we need to about that green component for sure. So let's go to the front third of your palate then. So the border region between front third and middle third of your palate, again you get that little bit of bready build up in there. The kind of rye breads in the base, the wholemeal brown breads above that, then the sort of caramelly spongy notes. Then yeah, the base of the front third of your palate, you've got the nice smoother side of the oak in there, the vanilla, the brighter side of the brown sugars from the spirit as well. A wee bit more floral note from the spirit as well, I would add. And then yeah, you've got the toasty bread crust just sitting there, the rye bread, wholemeal brown bread, the caramelly sponge, and the toasty, a little bit not so much chocolate there, but yeah, the toasty side of the brown sugar, and just a wee bit of that more leathery and Werther's original side to it as well. But above everything else, you've got that lovely oily bubble there where the fruity, juicy esters just kind of roll their way out of the beer. So yeah, let's look at that fruity side of things then, just to round off. So yeah, when you take the beer in at the start, it absolutely has a little bit of a kind of raisiny sharpness to it, but then it mellows out and gives you more kind of plummy and other kind of notes there. So yeah, if you go to the back half of that oily bubble that I was talking about, it's kind of raisiny on the top, bit of juicy plum underneath, but into the aftertaste underneath that you're getting prunes, dates, maybe a little bit of sultana, but yeah, a lot of fig in this one. I will say I get I think fig and black currant I think are the most dominant flavours in this one. So yeah, as you reach the middle of that front 30 palate, there's a lot of big juicy figgy character in there, some black currant further forward, and then yeah, you get some juicy kind of blackberry in there as well. But is there anything else that we're missing? I don't think so, to be honest with you. Yeah, I think this one is really, really nicely done. So as I say, it gets a big thumbs up from me in that regard. Yeah, this blend of Imperial Stout and Barleywine, this level of it works really quite well. In fact, I mean, maybe you could call this a black barley wine, I don't know, something like that. But I do think you'd get a bit more, if it wasn't a blend, I think if you actually brewed it with a little bit of black malt or special B or something like that, you get a lot more harshness out of it. So maybe blending is the right technique to use if you want this. But it's a very interesting blend of flavours, and I think they've got the blend just right in this one, to be honest with you. So yeah, really interesting beer, this one, and one that has tasted my palate, and that's what you want after, what are we at now, 4,300, 4,400 reviews. So yeah, happy with this. Let's round off the review then with a wee quick look at the mouthfeel. So for me, this beer, it's, I would say, sort of bottom end of full-bodied, mid-range full-bodied, very, very smooth carbonation. It's got a lovely smoothness to it, this one. I don't know if I said that about the other Boatrocker beers, but there's something that tells me that I remember thinking Ramjet was smooth. I can't really remember with the Banshee actually, but I remember thinking Ramjet, despite its kind of toastiness and things that it had, I remember it being very, very smooth. So yeah, that really reflects into this beer, and I think that's the effect that the Ramjet's having on the Banshee, really, is just smoothing it out. So it's got a lovely smooth mixture of smoothness and dryness to it, this beer. I think that's a good way to kind of summarise this one almost. So yeah, in terms of the IBU count in this beer, I think it's got to be about 50-ish IBUs. You've got roastiness in there from the malt, you've got dryness from the barrel in this one, and then yeah, there will still be a little bit of hoppy bitterness to it as well. So I think about 50-ish IBUs, but again, there may well be a conflation there between dryness, toastiness, and actual IBU bitterness and things. So yeah, that's worth playing in mind. But yeah, the barrel backbone of this one gives it a lovely kind of dryness. You've got a wee bit of almost like, how would you say, crispy kind of character from the spirit, I would say. Smoothness from the kind of bready and cakey layers, a bit of smoothness again from the almost cocoa nibby type character the beer has. Then again, a kind of lovely dry sweetness from the sugars in there as well. So it's a very layered beer, this one, that's for sure. A little bit drier into the aftertaste, but also you've got a little bit of sharpness to the fruity character as well. So yeah, the way that everything kind of pieces together in this one, I think, is lovely. I certainly wouldn't hesitate to drink this beer again, but yeah, if you get this one, it is absolutely a sharer beer, and that's what I'm going to do just after we finish this video. But yeah, lovely stuff. I do hope to try a few more barley wines and things like that from Boatrocker going forward, because they do have some very interesting barrel aged stuff. But I think we can leave it at that for this one. So yeah, this was The Devil is in the Detail, an 11.1% sort of cuvee, I think we have to call it, a 25% of blend of the Ramjet Imperial Stout and the Banshee barley wine from Boatrocker Brewers and Distillers in Braeside, Melbourne, Victoria in Australia. So yeah, really interesting beer, this one. I've really enjoyed making this review for you. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Boatrocker as well, and we will definitely see about returning to these guys again at some point in the near future. But until the next time, Slàinte, skål, cheers, check out my social media, check out Boatrocker's social media, and I'll see you guys in another review very, very soon. Ciao, just now.